one must first work with the person, and we've had the opportunity to do that. We've not only worked with Steve Biederman for almost a year, we've worked with Fred and others, the entire team of the call center corporation, and it's been one of the, if not the best experience that I've had in all of the years that I've been doing what I do. And I really wish Steve was today, and he wishes the same, but I'd like to cover just 2 or 3 points that Steve and I were going to discuss together rather than just hand them to you as I'm about to. We were going to have an actual conversation between the two of us. But one of the points that I always think about, and Joe and others that are party to this presentation, is when it comes to servicing our clients, I've never met a person that is more dedicated to servicing their client base than Steve. We do the same thing. Those of you that are present today that have worked with Joe know exactly what I'm talking about, and others hopefully will come to understand that. But the second point, it's really obvious, but we need to experience it, and joining together, we can make a substantial difference to our present and future clients. And that's a question mark always. Will the two companies coming together make a difference? And I can tell you that there's a resounding yes in that. And then last, does it make sense financially? I can tell you that it will. We will be a much stronger company. We will be adding a technology company, Steve's company, along with their marketing division. I think we'll all agree on something that I think is very important, and one of the reasons that we've come together today, and that is this. Technology, it's changing the way higher education teaches. It's also changing how students learn from that teaching, and we'll cover some of that today. In addition to that, if we talk about us, and I don't mean us, I mean us collectively, it's also changing the way enrollment communicates with their prospects. It's and how advancement keeps up with the ever-changing world of helping financially. We work with both sides of the house and have for many, many years. And we look at this as an application. We wake up in the morning, we're working for higher education. It's not just one particular company. It's all of you. And when we look at enrollment, getting students, getting a good match with a particular institution, we take that as a very important role. But we also know that when we speak with development and work with them, that this is probably the most important part, and hardest, most difficult, because your role changes almost daily. It's up to you to address the financial issues through your annual fund that students are always looking to you for. And we're really very, very proud of our role that we play in higher education. And two of the things that we're going to be talking about today are just two things that need to be addressed. They both have to do with technology and how we can help you in the coming days and weeks and years to come. And if there are any questions, anything at all, please don't hesitate to ask. And again, I say thank you to everybody that I've talked with that has joined us today. And those of you that are brand new, welcome aboard. Phil, why don't you take it from there?
All right. Thank you, Bill, for your words and again for being with us here today. Someone's asked a question already, and I just thought it was important enough to comment on. Yes, the session is being recorded today, and we'll be sending that link out after the webinar. Probably by tomorrow you should receive that. Or you can check with your concierge, the person that's been speaking with you about the webinars. So let's get started with today's presentation by introducing our two presenters, Joseph Battisti and Fred Stacy. First, Fred Stacy is the Chief Operating Officer of the Call Center Corporation, and he's held numerous senior operating positions in software and technology, both in the U.S. and internationally. Fred has a significant background in building and managing training groups and was responsible for the creation and build-out of various corporate university training programs. He's spoken at national motivation and leadership events, and he's even authored a book, Cut Out the Garbage, that focuses on call center sales management. Next, we have Joe Battisti. He has over 15 years of experience in the teleservices and the web-based customer outreach services industries. And as the Chief Operating Officer for the Stockade Group, he oversees every aspect of the day-to-day operations of the firm. He's got a track record of success opening and operating new contact centers from the ground up. He's got vast experience running business-to-business and business-to-consumer projects in various verticals, and has worked extensively in the higher education field regarding marketing strategies. So with that, Joe, why don't you start today's presentation? It's all yours.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Phil, for that introduction, and thank you, Bill, as well, to introduce some of our new relationship, our new company, if you will, bringing in the Call Center Corporation, Steve Biederman and Fred, and many others. It's an exciting time. Over the past year or so, we've been looking at different ways as the market has changed and the way that we need to communicate with our constituents and students in general. We need to find different ways, and a lot of it is what we're going to be talking about today, of how we, through this merger, have the ability now to do these different things. So today is a bit of an announcement, a bit of discussion about what we have available and how you might be able to incorporate them, how you'd be able to incorporate them into your overall strategy and communication strategy with your constituents. The first slide that I have up is kind of just a place to start. A lot of these things are probably very common. They're very broad stroke. Probably 90% of all of you are already doing some of these things in different levels, in different ways. What we've attempted to show here is that from an adoption rate standpoint, some of these items are very high. Everybody's doing it. In some situations, maybe down a little further on the list, the adoption rate may not be as high, or maybe we're finding ways, well, yeah, I know everybody's texting, or I know, everybody is talking about this messaging thing, but I'm not sure how it works. When do I do it? How do you do it? So that's what we're going to talk about. The cost and the overall return as it relates to each of these items are varied, right? If you start to think about your print appeals that you're running throughout the year, yes, everybody's doing it. The cost is relatively high. You might be talking about 50 cents to upwards of $1.50, depending on the type of print material that you're sending out, including postage and the materials involved. And especially depending on who you're sending it to, like a non-donor type of a segment, the return is very low, if not minuscule, right? And you're probably thinking, in terms of budget, you might be using up maybe half of your overall budget to send out these non-donor print materials, and the return is very low. Email, it's very similar. Everybody's doing email. You're doing it a variety of times throughout the year for different types of announcements. The cost is very low. The return's a bit more moderate. It has to be done, print, email. Social media is now starting to get into the fold. A lot of people are getting involved with it. It's maybe not as well organized across the institution. You may have a variety of different pages. The cost is probably somewhat moderate, depending on how committed you are to it, how many resources you have overseeing it and running and keeping those pages up to date. The return is probably moderate to a certain degree. You have to be able to quantify the type of response that you're seeing through your social media efforts. Events are a great way to bring people together. The adoption rate's very high. The cost is probably somewhat moderate, maybe to a high level, depending on how elaborate some of the events that you're putting on. But the return is probably also very high, assuming that your attendance rates are good. I would think that those are, generally speaking, those are good ways of drawing people in to get involved, whether it's through volunteer or financial commitments. The bottom half now is really where we're going to spend a little bit of time together today in talking about telephone, messaging, the mobile and texting world, and web strategies, where the adoption rates may not be as high. The returns are fairly good, if not, maybe on the lower to moderate side. But the return is something that we need to start to take a look at and start quantifying, and that's where we're going to start to spend a little bit of time. You can go to the next slide. Thanks, Bill. So the first one we'll get into is the telephone outreach. And, Bill, I'd like to draw you back into the conversation just a little bit here on campus versus off campus. And I think that this is something that's probably talked about and discussed very often as far as what's it going to take? Do I want to do this? Is a student-based, student-run phone-a-thon the way to go? And I think you have had so many conversations up front, setting up an overall campaign strategy. Why don't you talk a little bit about that decision-making process, and before I dig into some of our service offerings there.
Sure. For years, every time that I either speak before a board of trustees or with the president or provost or AVP, VP, director, all are in agreement that the very best way to conduct and we'll speak specifically about an annual fund and a phone-a-thon, is to have students conduct it. And whether you have hire a off-site manager to run it, or you have one of your graduate students or a student that's perhaps in their senior year running the campaign, those are things and those are decisions that have to be made. But if one were to make the decision and follow through on that, it would be have your students not only do the calling, but run it. This is, they can speak to alumni, their fellow or alums, in a way that no one else can. They can talk about professors, they can talk about what's going on with construction, they can talk about a lot of different things that we as professionals cannot. Now, there's pluses and minuses to doing either way. What we call hosted is where the college has their own call center and we run it. We do all the operational ends of it, and Joe will cover that. There are some colleges that have been doing their own, have their own call center for quite some time. So we furnish the, you might say the mechanical or the back end of it, and they just run the whole thing from A to Z. So Joe will get into that, talk more about it, but those of you that are thinking about moving forward into, again, what we call a hosted situation, we do that and have done it for quite a number of institutions. And more than that, we've been actually working off-site for now close to 8 years in having our people work out of their home, and we have found that for them a much more comfortable situation. And so, Joe, go ahead and take it from there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Again, I wanted to underline that the thought process and decision-making process, and I think Bill did it really well. I think it's very easy to say, yeah, in a perfect world, I want the students to make the calls. In some situations, you can't, and for whatever that reason might be, whether it's resources or space or a variety of other things. And some of the things that you'll want to take a look at is, well, what does it take to run an on-campus phone-a-thon? The first thing is technology makes it very easy these days. All you need is a computer, high-speed internet, and a headset, and you're ready to roll. With that said, you do need support, and that's something that we have really built into our model by offering virtual support. Not only will we come on-site for different times of the year to do some training with your system training and phone etiquette with your students and or your client or your student supervisors, we'll also be there when we leave. So once our presence is over on campus, we will be here watching, observing, monitoring, and coaching every day, every shift that you're running. And it's just an ongoing type of a communication that we provide. We could be as involved or as little involved as you want or need us to be. For those that are just getting started, maybe moving into an on-campus phone-a-thon for the very first time, maybe you're working in an automated mode, or I'm sorry, a manual mode today, and your desire is to move it into an automated mode. That's where I think our involvement is needed more, where we can come on campus, provide that on-site training, and then provide that ongoing virtual support once we leave that presence. And you have your supervisor in place. And really, what's their focus is working with the students, motivating them, keeping running some incentive programs, listening in on their conversations, talking to the alum, getting involved, and just making sure that the results are coming in the way that we want to see it. And what we'll do on our back end is we'll do everything else. Not only will we provide that virtual monitoring that's going on mid-shift, but we'll also provide the reporting, all of the reporting necessary that you'll need to run on a daily basis. All of your script writing from a programming standpoint, we'll be able to take care of all that for you. Database management, we'll be able to oversee that, the loading of the data, the cleaning of the data as it's happening. We'll be able to send out the pledge letters the very next day if that's something you want us to do. If you want your students to do that, that's an option as well. We'll develop the campaign strategy as we go. We'll help you write the scripts. We'll help you do all of the things that are a part of every telephone outreach phone-a-thon that you'll be running. We'll be able to help you whether it's on campus or off. The only difference would be your students making the calling versus our professional employees that are making the call on your behalf. And we'll also be taking a look at integration of different types of services. So we'll be looking at incorporating the messaging, incorporating some warm transfer capabilities if that's necessary. What I mean by warm transfers is if we need to get a client involved at in a moment's notice, we can do that. We can get that alum right over to you. So there's a variety of different features that we might be able to incorporate in any telephone campaign. Okay, so that's the overview of the telephone outreach section, running the phone-a-thon, whether it's on campus or off. Why don't we move to the next slide, Phil? Messaging, broadcast messaging. What is it? How does it work? So let's start there. What is it? It's a mass delivery system of a pre-recorded message. So you could have a student. You could have your president. You could be you, people inside the development office themselves, recording a message, something that you want to alert to all of your constituents. And you want to do it fast. And you want to do it inexpensively. You want to get that message out there. I think it's very, you might have heard of it from by the words I have on the screen there, a message blast or a robocall. You may know it better known as that. But by incorporating a message blast campaign, you'll be able to do a variety of different things. You could update, update alumni by talking about upcoming events. You could remind them about different mailers that might be coming in the mail. You could even incorporate an outbound IVR call, which what that means is where they can actually work themselves right into the message. So If they're hearing about something that they want to talk to someone else about, they might be pressing 1 so that they could be transferred over to somebody in the development office. If they want to give their gift right over the phone at that time, after they hear that pre-recorded message, they can hit that 1 and then go right over. So that's a message blast, and that's also incorporating an interactive piece there as well with a Press 1 campaign. What's a ringless voicemail? That's something fairly new to the education space, and it is basically what it says. It's a ringless voicemail. It's again, a pre-recorded message, something that we'll be able to send out in no time. We can send thousands of these calls in literally minutes. And what it does differently than a broadcast message is it's basically intended to be implanted into a voicemail, so without ever ringing the phone. Versus a broadcast message where the phone is going to ring, we're hoping that that person is going to actually pick up the phone, listen to the message, and perhaps interact with it, versus a ringless voicemail where what we're hoping for is to implant that message so that they can come to it when they're ready. It might be a little bit more of a complex message. It might be a little bit longer, upwards of maybe a minute. It might provide special instructions, something that they may have to rewind it and play it again. Take notes. Again, it's a variety. It's a slight deviation of a robocall, but you can see its use. It's unobtrusive. It's not ringing that phone, and you're implanting maybe that more complex message to be listened to when that constituent's ready to listen to it. Slide, please. So why use it? I was starting to get into that. The different ways and why you would want to incorporate broadcast messaging into your overall campaign strategy. Number one, it's cost effective and it's fast. It's relatively very, very cost effective, and you can get it done, like I said, in minutes. You can reduce your operational costs through automation, and that's what I was talking about with the Press 1 campaign. That's something where you can send out that message and almost deliver perhaps a proactive message that would cut down on the number of calls that might be coming in. You can tell them to go to online, perhaps, and provide the gift through an online mechanism. Or you can have that Press 1 campaign, and it will allow a more seamless approach to having those calls coming into your office. You can improve donor loyalty. We're finding that different ways of using messaging will overall affect the way that the donor is perceiving the institution. So you could send out thank you messages from a student. It doesn't always have to be about asking for money. It could be talking about reunions or events, just thanking them. These are different ways that you can provide a voice, a message in an inexpensive and fast way to provide this type of information to your constituencies differently than perhaps through a mailing, through an email, or even over the phone. It's a way that you can get that message out there, make it very personal from a student, from a president, and you can deliver it to them in a variety of different ways and frequencies throughout the year. And you can also use it to uplift other things that you're doing throughout the year. If you're sending out a mailer, well, you never know how many people are looking at it. You never know how many people are just throwing it right in the garbage. Let's take, for example, if you sent a pre-message to alert somebody that a mailer's coming, to bring their attention to it. Maybe a post message that talks about the mailing that they hopefully just read about, reminding them to take action. Again, maybe fulfillment is something that you'll want to use messaging for. Maybe right after that pledge is taken over the phone, you can remind them to send in that pledge as soon as possible. You can give them different ways to fulfill that pledge, maybe by going online, calling in, maybe even offering a text option, which we'll get into very soon. So you can use these messaging options, whether ringless or a broadcast message, to uplift your opens, uplift your response rates with everything else that you're doing, driving attendance to events, opening mailings, opening emails, taking an action in some way, shape, or form. So that's broadcast messaging. Let's move to the next slide, please. Mobile strategy. So I set myself up pretty good right there. You can take a look at how you can incorporate text and mobile into your overall strategy. Let's think about this. This is nothing new, right? Everybody's thinking about it. We have to recognize the change in the audience communication preference. They're losing their landlines. They're moving over to their cell phones. Some people don't even want to pick up their phone anymore. They would rather, go to their phone, go online, text, social media. That's happening. So what do we do about it? Well, first of all, we have to start generating our opt-in lists. We have to start collecting cell phones. And in every way that you're communicating with them, whether it's through print, whether it's through email, events, on the phone, messaging, you name it, we have to look for ways to obtain that cell phone. That's something that we do a lot of here internally, whether we're running a hosted campaign or whether we're doing it here with our own employees. Updating contact information, specifically the cell phones and the emails, are crucial. And this is perfect. It goes right into why. So the first question is even if you have their cell phones and you are communicating with them via text and you're getting them to use their cell phone, is your giving portal smartphone friendly is a good question to ask yourself. How many people have looked at your own website, your own portal, and seen what it looks like on your phone? Is it easy to work with? Are people enticed to actually use it and make a gift through it? Are they looking for information about employer match or how the annual fund's doing? How do they make a gift? Are they going to your website through a smartphone, and is it ready? That's something you'll need to be prepared for, and something we can help you with as well. Integrating a text option for special offers is what we're talking about. While I have everybody's attention, why don't we use this demo that I have up on the screen too? It's very simple. You'll see it on your screen where you can use your texting the word Stockade to the following number, 72727. If you don't mind, pull out your phone and text Stockade to that number, 72727. Now again, it's very simple of the message that you're going to see, but I think it illustrates what we're talking about. And if you can, once you have that completed, you can start to ask yourself, well, what's my message, and where do I advertise it? Do I put it in my emails? Do I put it on social media? Do I put it on print? Do I put it in my radio ads? Do I put it everywhere? And that is the answer, yes. You want to put it everywhere. To use these different short codes and keywords to integrate into your overall phone-a-thon strategy, or your overall strategy in and of itself. Giving them the option to communicate with you via text is a great way to move yourself forward in getting that opt-in and communicating with your constituents via their cell phone, that's where they're at. So we have to reach them. So I hope everybody did that demo. So you can see the very simple, but I think it fits for what we're talking about. It's just a sample message where they can click on a link. Right now it's just the Stockade Group's website link, but you can see that it could be any link, of course, and it would hopefully be your giving portal. And that giving portal would be ready to accept a gift. And that might be a campaign that you might run for 24 hours, 48 hours. Maybe it's a certain month that you're doing a special event or a special giving incentive. Maybe you're running a raffle. All gifts that come in during a certain time via text, there's a different ways that we can get creative about using your text to pledge or text to give in this situation to get people engaged and using their cell phones in a different way. Okay, let's move to the next slide. Okay, so again, just kind of in summary, what we're looking at here is the big picture, right? How do you incorporate all of these things that we talked about today into an overall campaign strategy? And that's what we'll do with you. We'll sit down, we'll look at the year, we'll look at your segments, we'll look at all of the things that are going on, and we'll fine-tune that overall campaign strategy. We'll use Ringless Voice Mail maybe up front. We'll use a message blast right after your print. We'll get going on the telephone. We'll send out mailers. We'll send out an email. And it's all going to be, feeding off of each other, all in tune, all very consistent, And you can see that at the end of the day, you're going to have more tools in that toolbox that you can pull out at any given time. And that's the beauty of it, I think, of it too, is that you don't need to use everything, but you have the option now to do that. You can use bits and pieces whenever you see that you find that, hey, we're missing a goal. We want to do something different. We want to try this. We want to test. Well, here's all the different ways that you can incorporate that into your overall campaign strategy. So I hope this was helpful. Again, please ask questions. If we don't get them answered today, we're going to be able to follow up with you. Feel free to give us a call. We can just talk. Exchange ideas, and I'm sure we'll find different ways to reach our constituents and get them to reach our results in a much better way. So I'll turn it back over to you, Fred.
Well, thank you, Joe. I noticed in your circle there wasn't a web strategy listed in there. So let me just segue into my portion, and we can talk a little bit about that. Now, web strategy, I'm sure everybody on this call has thought about it one way or another, been involved in meetings, discussions around this. We've all used search engines. Google, Yahoo, Bing now is obviously an up-and-coming one. We're all very familiar with how they work. So, it's just everybody's searched before for a piece of information. And they're looking for something in particular, but they get about 10 million or so different options of everything you could possibly know about the subject. However, it doesn't give you the answer you really need. That's because traditional search engines, including the ones on your websites today, use keyword technology. Keyword technology has been around for a long time. It's what we've learned. It's what we know. But it has limitations. There's a new product I'm going to be showing you today a little bit about and talking about. It actually utilizes something called semantics, and on top of keyword recognition, it uses basically an algorithm, a search algorithm that allows for natural language processing and semantics recognition to understand what a person is asking for. There was recently a Harvard Business Journal article that spoke to about 50% of the major corporations in the world are going to be utilizing semantic search as opposed to keyword search within the next couple of years. Everybody understands that the value of natural language processing and searching through the way that we communicate today, and not just keywords, is critical. So one of the things that I always like to ask people is, when you're looking at your web strategy, one, do you know what the most commonly searched phrase is on your website? 99% of the time, people cannot tell me that simple thing, which is actually kind of amazing, because simply when it comes down to marketing, which web strategy obviously has to have marketing involved, it's critical to understand what your audience wants out of your website. Now, where this navigation actually fails, 50% of your users will then turn to your search bar. So how does this all apply to your web strategy and development? It's extremely critical to be able to deliver the information as quickly as you possibly can to the people that are looking for it, and to understand what they're looking for. So 90% of the website users who are looking to access self-service content, they actually use your search engine. So I've done spent a lot of time with Joe and Bill and their team looking at the various university websites, and almost everybody has implemented some kind of search engine or search tool to their website. And typically, I don't come from the education field like Bill and Joe has, so they've taught me a lot about the field and how you guys work. And one thing I realized is I didn't know much about it. You guys have a lot of data and a lot of information on your websites and your portals, and unfortunately, the development side doesn't appear in most cases, and we've looked at a lot of websites. In most cases, doesn't seem to have much of a presence. What it does have, it's often very difficult to find. So how critical is the web presence to your overall development goals? obviously, we all know the website is critical for everything we do today. When you get an audience member onto your site, a constituent or an alum that is looking to pay and can't find the location or the way to reach out to you or to actually pay online, I mean, those things obviously are going to cause some frustration. And with the, as the audience's attention spans continue to drop with the next generations, and you can only imagine that the impact of not delivering that information is going to significantly impact your overall donations from your website. So, I always want to put the statement to everybody is how valuable is one gift? How valuable is one visitor to your website, or 10 visitors, or 100 visitors to your website that can't find what they need immediately? So I did something just for the fun of it. I went out to a couple of university websites and I put in the words "how to donate." Simple term. You would assume that in any search bar you'd come up with at least relatively close to what you're looking for. And one of them, I just had to share this. The first term that was on this search, and I'm not going to name the university because just in case they're on, or I would highly recommend doing this on your own site. But the first search thing that came up is I learned how to donate my body to science for that university. They refused, of course, but I'm not too broken up about it. So I also didn't learn the information I was looking for until the second actual page, which was about 20 items in. If you can imagine, if I had to go to every single page and take a minute or two to read the page, by the time I got there, I'd be an hour into my view, and no one in today's world is going to wait an hour to find the information that they need. And the next generations that are coming up, they have even less of an attention span. I look at my daughter who just graduated high school, and she wouldn't wait 10 seconds if she couldn't find the right answer. The attention span of a gnat. So it's critical to give the information that your audience needs and give it to them quickly. And people are comfortable with search, and they've been doing it for a long time. So why aren't we supplying them with the information properly? So next slide, please, Phil. All right, so I'm going to give you a quick look. On your left, you're looking at a basic dashboard of a product called AnswerClick. On the right, you're looking at the actual answer that comes from it. AnswerClick, we worked extensively with the Stockade group and their knowledge of the education vertical and a company called Cogenope. Cogenope is a big data solution provider that specializes in semantic recognition and is the developers of the engine under the hood. The engine is actually designed for scouring large networks and doing analysis of big data problems on hundreds and thousands of terabytes of data. Now, taking that big data solution and building it into a product, we were actually able to create a solution to a very simple problem, which is how do you get the information to a person that they want to see and need to see right away, the first answer. So unlike your traditional knowledge base or FAQs, where you've got to go through countless pages or traditional searches like you have today on many of your websites, you have to go through many iterations of the same potential answers, whatever keywords may think is the right answer. With this, it gives you one answer for one question, and then it gives you the power and the visibility to understand the simple thing that I mentioned, which is what is your customer asking for. And I know it's kind of hard to see, and I apologize, but the image on the lower left-hand side of it, there's actually questions with no answers. And that's, from my perspective, being on a marketing side, it's probably one of the best pieces of information you could possibly learn from a development standpoint, from any standpoint. Understanding exactly what your audience is looking for is critical to be able to tell them what you want to supply them. Maybe it's something along the lines of maybe there was some special events you put on last year that was extremely successful, and people and audiences are looking for, is that event going on? Are you going to do it again? Those are the type of questions you're going to see actually the full question in which, and you'll be able to understand that and quickly answer if you don't have an answer. And then, of course, you can change your marketing or your target or potentially bring back programs or make the changes necessary to your web presence to really get and drive your audience to where you want them to go. And that's the key. By combining the power of natural language, which allows a student, the student body, the past alum to search in the way that they would ask the question to you and I in person, find the right answer, and then supply them with a link that drives them to the actual where they can make a donation or a gift. That is a powerful set of tools and reduces a search time from what could be 20, 30 minutes, hour, down to a simple 1-minute search and you find the right answer. And this not only stops there, but it gets better as it continues to develop. Because it learns how to answer by the way you manage and update your questions and answers, and you see your no answers. It gets better with the more time you have this implemented on your site. So I don't want to spend a whole lot of time. I don't want to take up time into the questions. I'm sure we probably have a whole lot. So Phil, if actually next slide. I don't think I have any more. I do. Look at me. I'm getting ahead of myself. Some of the things I'll brush over again because I know we're getting short on time, and I think I'm probably getting a little long-winded. So you get an immediate ROI on this. This is not difficult to implement. It's actually extremely easy. It's extremely cost-effective, and it's easy to turn it around quickly because, as you know, obviously your gifts are very critical to what you do. It ensures consistent answers. It's always awake, 24/7. You don't have to feed it. You don't have to listen to it complain. It's always going to be there. And it always, it's always improving and getting better and answering more accurately. It is available in multiple languages, and as I said, it continues to learn. Some of the things, you can, I've already touched on the marketing efforts, but you can improve loyalty, better understand your audience's questions, allow quick discoveries. We did some searches on employer matching gifts, and it was very difficult to find any information on the majority of the university sites that we looked at for anything on this. And you can provide them with HTML pages that are automatically linked based upon that question. Anything to do with how do I find out, how do I discover, how do I find my employee matching gifts, is my employer searched by the employer's name, directly into the same knowledge base and search box that sits on your overall website. So I hope I didn't brush through that whole section fast enough, and I probably didn't give it enough conversation. However, I do want to make sure we get to the questions. So, Phil, I'll pass it back over to you, and we'll take the questions now.
Okay, and I've put up the information there as far as the contacting the Stockade group, phone number and website, and an email address. We've got a couple of questions from, first of all, regards from Amy, Bill, and Joe. The question is it sent to a mobile phone or a home phone, with home phones not really being used much anymore? I kind of think you answered that, but could you go over that again, guys?
I'm assuming this question is geared towards the messaging.
Yes.
I would think, and for message blasting, it could be used for either. I think the Ringless Voice Mail is a little bit more geared towards the cell phones, but it can have a use across both. But we see much better success with cell phone use in terms of implanting that message ringlessly that way. So I don't know if I think I answered the question. Anybody else have anything to add to that?
No, that sounds good.
Hopefully
that's good. Did well.
Do you provide the number to text to? Like the 72727 number, I presume, is what they're asking.
Yes. Yes, the 72727 is a number that we do provide. and I believe we can have access to others as well. Fred?
Yeah. There's those short codes or those numbers are generally shared numbers. However, some of the clients do prefer to have a personalized ones. It's not always necessary. However, if it's a long-term target, it may be something you may want to look at. But definitely, we can supply a few different numbers.
Right.
Okay. Can you collect donor data when they opt in with the text messaging or with the text messaging option?
I think that would be more of a custom implementation. I think what we'd have to take a look at is where are they going once they go online. If they click a link to go onto a custom portal, we would be able to collect any information that we're seeking and hope that they would be willing to provide during that process. The question is that, at least through texting, the issue would be you don't know specifically who that person might be depending upon how they're getting to the text. I mean, obviously, if you already know their cell phone number and that's inside your database, whether you're advertising the short code via email or mail or even over the phone, then there would be a way for you to sync up who you're communicating with. But in some cases, you may not have that cell phone in your database. So if you're, getting them to use their cell phone, you may not know who that cell phone is. And I think that's probably where the question's coming from, is how are you collecting donor data during that process? And that's where you'd want to integrate that custom portal or that custom URL page where you can collect some of that data.
Right. I think with a properly designed some QR codes, some pieces to have out at events, to do with your, any of your development programs, those are all key things pointing back to a mobile optimized website is critical. Capturing that data, getting those opt-ins, making sure that you can, obviously communicate them in the methods that you want to are all critical items to a properly designed overall plan.
Okay. The next one, bear with me while I read it. I'm sure there are many factors involved, but can you give us a range of what it costs to send a ringless voicemail message or a text message?
Well, you're right. There are many variables depending upon the size of the list, the length of the message. Those are the two primary things that we would have to take a look at. So I guess there was not many. There's a couple that we'd have to take a look at. But the ringless message, it ranges somewhere between, I've seen it as low as 5 cents. I've seen it as high as 15 cents, depending upon those two factors per message that you're delivering ringlessly. And then on the broadcast message, it's a little bit lower in that range. Specifically because of the non-ringless nature of it. The technology there is a little different. On the texting side, I'm going to need some help with that. I don't have the ranges.
It all depends on the overall program. We can definitely, there's so many different ways to approach these. It really is part of the. I think one of the great things about working with Joe and Bill is they really have a consultative approach to the way that they work with their customers. So, to almost every client of theirs has their own, I guess, specialized program is the best way you could say it. So the pricing will vary. It is overall from the response rates on text messaging, though, I think anybody will find in today's world that there is no better marketing method for response rates than texting. And that's just the bottom line. So that doesn't impact the overall cost. The costs are also relatively low. So it is one of the most cost-effective methods you could implement today. But we can get them, if the person, when we get your questions, we'll definitely be able to reach back out to you with some more specific answers, or if we don't get a chance to get to your questions, we'll definitely get those answers back out to you.
All right. And again, if they don't have time or the inclination to ask a question now, or something pops up later, the number's on the screen again. Give us a call or send us an email, and we'll get back to you. A couple of more questions. We've got about 3 minutes left, roughly. Who records the message for the ringless delivery? And Fred, you want to answer that one? For the ringless, who records the message? Yeah.
That's entirely dependent on the goal and the program. You know, it could be a president, you know, a senior member of the development group. It could be one of our voice people. You know, in some instances, maybe it's a coach. I mean, who knows?
Okay.
It just depends on the overall goal and strategy.
So it can be anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We've used
All right.
Just to butt in there, we have used students, and you know, we find that it resonates very well. So I mean, somebody that could be, you know, depending on your constituent base, maybe you've got, you know, a lot of nurses or a lot of business, or you know, depending on the majors, you might be able to pull a student in from a particular area, maybe a campus or a certain major that they're going for. Maybe you want to pull a senior, maybe a junior, or you don't know, but that's something that you can integrate into the whole goal of the campaign and make it very personal. And you can do as many of these as you want. You can segment that list up based on who you're reaching out to. So the business major reaches out to business majors, you know, and so on. So you can see how you can really get creative with it and who can do it and who you send it to.
Okay, great answer. Have you seen success with ringless messaging compared to robocalls?
Well, we've seen success with both. You know, and again, it plays into the overall strategy. Okay, so you know, by itself, if you're going to use just one of these tactics that's standing on its own, it's going to be difficult to really measure the return on, you know, and how you're quantifying success. I think it needs to be integrated very, very cohesively with all of your other tactics that you're doing. Mail, you know, we talked about them all already, so I won't go over, you know, too much. But I think when you're using it with the other tactics, it's going to uplift those response rates. I can't say I've seen more success from both, you know, either ringless or robo or the broadcast message. I think, you know, we've seen success in both.
One thing I'd like to mention before we go is challenge grants. This is an area that it can really, I think, bring home quantifiable results, because if you attach a time frame to something, you'll know within that time frame, be it an hour, 2 hours, or a day or two, exactly what's happening. So I know many of you use challenge grants, and it should be used more using this methodology than voice, for instance, or both. But if you want to measure something, that's one way to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, guys? We're coming up on the hour, and if not, shake heads. Okay.
Thank you
very much
everybody
for being with us.
All right. Thanks everybody for being
us
here. The recording will be available. We'll get that information out to you. And thanks so much. Watch your mail for your email. For future webinars coming up, we'll have another one here in a few more weeks. So appreciate you very much for what you do, and we know you have a tough job. Our job is to help you make it easier. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.